And so far, we don't really have a political party standing with us. And that's what we want. We want a political party to stand for children, to stand for parents, and we were waiting for them. And too bad, honestly, many of us supported Prime Minister Trudeau.
Joe Russell now with the front line with Joe and Joe. Once again, let us go into the breach. The immigrant communities which supported Justin Trudeau and the liberals in America are turning on them. Interesting. Play the clip.
And so far, we don't really have a political party standing with us. And that's what we want. We want a political party to stand for children, to stand for parents, and we were waiting for them. And too bad, honestly, many of us supported Prime Minister Trudeau. Many of us supported him. Many immigrant communities supported Trudeau. And now what's he saying? He's saying that Muslims are being brainwashed. We're not brainwashed. We are professional people. Up here, there's doctors and lawyers and engineers and people that work from home and homemakers. We're professional people. We're not brainwashed. We know the facts. We just all of a sudden didn't become hateful people. We've always had a concern. It's what's happening in our schools is getting worse and worse and worse. And now they've crossed the red line. Our children are our red line.
This is an interesting phenomenon, and I'm going to speak specifically to America first. Joe Biden has opened up the border, and millions upon millions of people have come into the United States. Many of them are living on the streets, frankly, sadly. But what I think they're not calculating into this is this. These people are socially conservative. You tell someone from, I don't know, I'll just pick a country, Honduras, that your son could transition into the body of a girl by taking chemicals. The father would hit you over the head with a shovel, and the mother would throw holy water on you. The same thing is going on in Canada. The kid policy, that variable is going to turn on them because the left always overplays their hand. And ultimately, the very people that they counted upon for votes in time are going to turn on them. You're starting to see this. And they're not backing off the transgender ideology because it's their religion. The LGBTQ, it's their religion. It's their ideology. They're not backing off on it. And right now, they do control the institutions of power, particularly the schools. And they almost don't need the parents' buy-in. But eventually, the cracks are going to form. I think this is a big loser for the progressives, both in Canada and in America. And it's going to be more pronounced as time moves on. Sadly, they will not back off of it. And ultimately, I think it's going to undo them. CTV News says most Canadians oppose government funding newsrooms and media consolidation. Of course, the people aren't for that. But what people don't understand, and this is almost like a joke, the government needs to control the news. That's how they control the narrative. That's how they control the people. You see, the institutions, and the media is part of the institutions, and the establishment controlled the people for years through the mainstream media. Now you have social media. So what do? You have to take a stronger grip, a stronger hand, and you have to censor. Because without the media, you can't control the people. I remember many years ago, you may remember this for those who follow professional basketball, Rick Pitino, after he was at Providence College, got the job as the general manager as well as the coach of the Boston Celtics, got paid beaucoup bucks. And basically, he wasn't doing so good. And he kind of had a war of words with the media, and the media turned on him. And after the fact, he had an interview. He said, when I lost the media, I lost my job because every day I was on the cover and they were destroying me. And then the people turned on me and I lost my job. The media is a tool of the government. Of course, they have to buy off the media now because of what? Social media. So, of course, the Canadian people aren't for this. Why would they be? But it doesn't matter because the government controls too many institutions of power, and your voice doesn't mean anything anymore. Same in America, by the way. They control the institutions of power. And when they do that, they pull the levers of power to control you, one of which is the media. It's a tool. They're using it because the lie has lost its power. Therefore, you have to censor and have a more overt hand in the media to control what? To control you. This is what Justin Trudeau states. To those fleeing persecution, terror, and war, Canadians will welcome you regardless of your faith. Diversity is our strength. I'm going to show you the refugee situation in Toronto right now. Play the clip. Ultimately, many of these cities, like Toronto, like New York City, can't handle the refugees that are coming in. I'll speak to New York City. They're getting bused from other states to New York City. They're let out. They're basically, the city is paying for them to stay in hotels at taxpayer expense, but ultimately they have to leave the hotels. And what are you to do? You don't speak the language. Many of them don't have marketable skill sets. What are you to do? Well, as far as the American problem with regard to refugees, the liberals only want them to vote. As far as live, how they're going to live, they don't care. Just vote for me. Ultimately, that's the strategy. Just vote for me. How you live, how you make it, what happens to you isn't my problem. That's not an immigration plan. That is destroying people. And frankly, that is what's going on both in Canada and in America. And ultimately, we're paying for it. And sadly, the people who come here fleeing from tyranny and poverty are living in poverty. And the tyranny level in America and Canada grows by the day. The next Miss Canada, ladies and gentlemen, please stop telling me that this isn't a mental illness. Please put your comments in the chat. I think he'd make a very good Miss Canada. What do you think? Let's look at downtown Edmonton. Play the clip.
There we go. There's some more. These are behind the buildings downtown. You see our CN Tower right there. This is right off. Like, this is our core. Look at these people. It's actually just before 8 o'clock in the morning. I just came to bring my dad to the dialysis, so.
What happened to the Edmonton of old? Remember the Edmonton Oilers? You need to bring back some of that hockey glory, for crying out loud. Where's Gretzky when you need him? Dougie Ford says Toronto's application to decriminalize drugs is the craziest thing he's ever heard, and he plans to do everything he can to fight it. Dougie's right. How could you want to decriminalize meth, heroin, or cocaine? How? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. Ever. Well, I've heard of crazier things, sadly. But Dougie, once again, is right. You know what's even crazier? Watching Dougie dance. That's crazier. Actually, I think the decriminalizing of the drugs is crazier. But if you do take them, they may make you dance. Not Dougie, though. Dougie does not take drugs. Dougie eats hamburgers. Dougie drinks beers. And Dougie is the king of Ontario. Pierre Poilievre is challenged by a liberal reporter saying the carbon tax is not affecting the price of food. Play the clip.
So I'm looking here at an article from the Journal of the European Economic Association published just on March 16th. This is a major international study, found no significant impact of carbon taxes on inflation in Europe and a slight deflationary impact in Canada attributed to the stimulus to investment and supply in non-carbon intensive industries being provided by the carbon tax. So what's your response to that, and what hard data evidence do you have that the carbon tax is a major significant driver of inflation in Canada?
So what data do I have showing that the carbon tax drives up the cost of living? Well, the Bank of Canada. So The Bank of Canada, the governor has already said that the carbon tax contributes to inflation. So this gentleman was asking if fuel prices contribute to inflation. We have here a grocer who has to bring the food to a store. The food doesn't just fall out of the sky into the grocery store. It has to be trucked here. So do higher fuel costs have an impact on the food prices here at the storefront?
Absolutely. The prices on a trucking had doubled. Not only from bringing from the farm out of Mexico and California, from my warehouse from Surrey to Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's doubled.
So
that got added on back to the price.
it has to be added on. So what do you say? They claim there's a study that these carbon taxes and high fuel prices do nothing to increase prices. Do you agree with that?
Show me the formula. They work. I will use it here to lower the prices.
There you go. It's common sense. Higher fuel prices mean higher food prices. Carbon taxes on the farmers who make the food and the truckers who ship the food mean higher prices for all who buy the food. And don't blame this grocer. He's doing everything he can to bring lower prices. We need smaller grocers like this to bring more competition. But what can they do when governments hit the Canadian people, the farmers, the truckers, and the consumers with carbon taxes? That's why we're going to axe the tax to bring home lower prices. What do you think?
Looking forward to that.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Right on. There's your answer.
Couple points. I love the baby boss's face as he was asking that question. He looked so disgusted. So did his wife standing behind him. That's the first thing I immediately noticed. Second point and final point. As he asked that question, all the people in the store should have threw tomatoes at the reporter. I think that would have drove the point. Kevin O'Leary, tell us how you really feel. Play the clip.
Canada is the richest country on earth, run by idiots.
You've been very public in your disdain for the Prime Minister now, Prime Minister Trudeau, that he's doing a horrible job, that he's making things worse. You still subscribe to that, I guess, right?
He is one of the most successful politicians in history. He's been in that seat forever. He has zero executional skills. He is a horrible manager. He perhaps is the worst manager Canada's ever been under. The absolute worst. It can't get worse. Absolutely a -10.
So how do you feel about Trudeau? All right. Oh, you just answered that.
O'Leary's a character. You got to love him. I got to be honest. I got Canada needs an exorcism from him. I'm stealing that from you, O'Leary. I'm sorry. Let's talk about Trudeau's Canada. Here you have a nurse whose rent doubled, and now she lives in a van. Play the clip.
Me now is Terry Smith-Fraser, a full-time continuing care assistant who is currently living in her van after she was forced out of her apartment because the cost of rent climbed. Terry, welcome. Thank you for being with us. You've been living in your van for a year?
Yes. Just over a year now, I've been in my van.
What led to this?
Well, I was rent evicted, which is happening a lot, and the high cost of rents, I just couldn't afford an apartment. I couldn't afford anywhere to live.
Couple comments. How can a working nurse in a G7 nation have to live in a van? How? How is that possible? I'll tell you how. 2 carbon taxes, printing money, whereby you're diluting your currency, making inflation become insane, cost of fuel, cost of food. A nurse is a noble profession, one in which you're not going to get rich, but you will be able to provide for yourself. At least you used to be able to provide for yourself. Now in Canada, here's a person who's taking care of others and has to live in a van. Who's taking care of her? That's point one. Point two, I think Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live said it best. I live in a van down by the river. I want you to look at this picture and I want to talk about it. There's always that phrase, have you taken the red pill, which is embracing painful truth, which is many times reality, as opposed to remaining in ignorance, rationalizing the situation away. Let's discuss this. Too many people opt for the blue pill. They don't face reality. This is the problem with many of the countries in the West. We're talking specifically about the US and Canada. They don't look at the world as it is. Why? Because it requires them to change. So instead, they go for the blue pill as opposed to the red pill. This is the problem. The blue pill doesn't fix the problem ever, ever. All you do is just rationalize it away and remain in the mud. Canada must take the red pill. They must look at themselves square in the face. Look at why the country is in the state that it's in. And I'm going to tell you why. You have abandoned God. And as a result, your families are collapsing because the family that prays together stays together. That's a red pill. And for the Catholics out there, when's the last time you went to confession? When's the last time you received the Eucharist in the state of grace? When's the last time you prayed the rosary with your spouse? That's how you fix yourself. That's how I fix myself. That's how you fix your family. That's how you fix your nation. It's time for Canada to take the red pill. To all my Canadian American friends, if you like what we do on the front line, I'm asking you to give $1. Just $1. Production costs money. We do it for you. We are self-funded, and $1 goes a long way. That's less than a cup of coffee. In Canada, a cup of coffee might cost $5. So you're getting off easy. Please, just give us $1, and we'll keep the content coming your way. God bless you, and remember, stay free.